Um, uh, for the today's we are going to discuss about a nice topic. It is innovative also. Sir has given a nice topic. Will the proposed bad banking to India's banking sector? This is a topic which Professor had given has given us to discuss about it. Uh, Before that, I will going to read about SAR's profile. Uh, Sar is working as a professor and head in the Department of Banking Technology, School of Management, Pondicherry University, Puducherry. Sar has a 28 years of teaching experience and 18 years of research experience. His area of specialization accounting, finance, and system. He has guided more than 41 MPhil students and produced 18 PhDs. Published 10 books published by Indian and international publishers. Sar has published more than 172 articles in the referred journal, which is national and international, published by leading publishers. Participated 109 national international seminars, workshops held various places in India, other countries, and presented papers. Visited various countries like Thailand, Russia, Oman, Brazil, and for paper presentation. Sar has actively involved with the teaching, research, curriculum development, writing books, preparation of study materials, and organizing workshops and seminars. Sar has designed and introduced 4 job-oriented certificate courses for UG and PG students. Sar has completed 3 funded research projects, which is funded by UGC and ICSSR. Sar is a member of Indian Accounting Association and the Madras Management Association. A member of Board of Studies and Academic Council in many institutions across the country. Received cash award and honor from Tamil Nadu State Council of Higher Education and Department of Higher Education, Government of Tamil Nadu. Sir got a Best Teacher Award from Puducherry University, Pondicherry University in 4 times. His biography is published by leading publishers of biographical information, Marcus Who's Who, in the year 2011 and 2013. Sir's biodata it is restricted to, due to time constraint, it is restricted to this level. Now I'm going to hand over the session to Professor Head, Dr. Sudarshan Prasad. Sir, please.
It's not audible, sir.
Sir, please.
Yeah. Sir, thank you, sir, for your nice introduction. For your nice introduction, and thank you very much for having given me the opportunity. Now, first I will share my screen. You test it, then I will go to the presentation.
Okay.
Yeah. My screen is visible, sir?
Yes, Professor. Yes.
Yeah. My screen is visible now?
Yes, sir, visible.
Yes, sir, visible, sir.
Nice. Thank you. And I am also comfortably audible to all of you. Am I right?
Yes.
Right. So once again, I would like to convey my sincere thanks to Allahabad University, the Department of Corporate Secretaryship, and the Faculty of Management for inviting me to discuss about a new concept of, we call it as a bad bank. This is an Natal workshop, the 5 days workshop. 5 days workshop under the title of Corporate Restructuring of public sector banks in India a present scenario. Sir, there is a call from your university. Is there any problem from that? I call from your Vediraj sir, Vedirajan sir.
No, sir, no problem, sir. You continue, sir.
Okay, right. Okay, you please inform me, ma'am.
Okay,
I am
sir.
available at right. Okay. You see the title, my dear participants. Corporate restructuring of public sector banks. In line with that, the core theme, I have selected a topic related to this, the restructuring of the bank balance sheet. The ultimate purpose of establishing the bad bank is to restructure the bank balance sheet. It is a part of restructuring the banking system, the financial system, in order to pump more liquidity into the financial system and to make the banks more active only. The concept of a new organization, an National Assets Restructuring Company Limited, NARCL, introduced by our finance minister in the last budget, February, in the parliament. So in the name of NARCL. So related to that only I am going to talk to you. Okay. So I want to give you a title in the question form. Will the proposed bad bank? So you see that bad bank is a proposed a new organization. It is called similar to an assets restructuring company, but now we call it as National Assets Restructuring Company Limited. That is NARCL. So this proposed NARCL bad bank, whether will it cure the India's banking sector? That is a question. I put it in my title. So that means there is some problem in that banking sector. There is some kind of issues in the banking sector. So there is some kind of that disease in the banking sector. So am I right? So that is why some kind of curative measures, some kind of initiatives, yes, some kind of new initiation system that is required to cure the Indian banking system. That is, we call it as this NARCL. We call it as bad bank. So will the proposed bad bank cure this Indian banking sector problem that are prevailing? I think from the previous, all the resource person, you might have heard about some of the important terminologies related to the merger and the NPA problem and others similar to that. So here also I don't want to talk much about NPA, but this will cure or that will give solutions to handle the NPA, number one. And it will help to pump some kind of liquidity into the banking system. And it is going to create some kind of confidence in the investors. And it is going to strengthen the banking sector a little bit. So for that, with that objective only, the concept of bad bank introduced by our finance minister in the last February 2021 budget in the parliament. Okay. So how it is, now my agenda is how the bad bank is going to work. Before that, what are the issues in that? How it is going to solve the problem, and whether it gives the proposal or whether it gives the solution. That way I am going to discuss with you, right? But instead of taking more of theoretical bullet points, since it is, as I mentioned, it is nothing but restructuring of the bank balance sheet. Strictly speaking, bad bank is nothing but a system of restructuring the bank balance sheet. So how the bank balance sheet, how it is going to be restructured, How we are going to read the bank balance sheet? In that way, I will take it into that. And the process involved in the establishment of bad bank, what are the functions performed by this proposed bank, all these things I want to highlight. So I request all of you, I came to know that participants from across India, they are participating from different disciplines. So I request all of you, please listen to this, and wherever you have the queries, note it. At the end, I will give some of the time to answer to your queries up to my level. Okay, right. Now, friends, as I mentioned, in the February 2021 budget, our Honorable Finance Minister, Srimati that Nirmala Sitharaman, that offered this a new initiative, that is announcement of setting of bad bank, a new organization, to move the bad loans of the public sector banks to this bank. So the purpose of this new organization is, some bad loans are available in the banks. So we have to shift that bank loan to the new organization. Through that, we can able to clean up the balance sheet. You see the last line in the first sentence, clean up the balance sheet of the banking sector, specifically related to the public sector banks. So that is the focus of establishing the bad bank. So cleaning up the balance sheet. I think that all of you are the management and the commerce faculty members, you know well about the term called window dressing. It is nothing but another form of window dressing. That's all. So that the main thing is to give the resolutions to or solutions to the stressed assets, that is non-performing assets. So that thing, non-performing assets are moved into a new setup that we call it as assets restructuring company. The assets restructuring company already be available, but it is the new form. How it is going to be a new form? How this ARC and the AMC. ARC is an assets restructuring company and AMC is an assets management company. Already these two organizations are all available, and they are taking care of some of the non-performing assets, bad loans. But this slightly a deviation is there, a new kind of modification is there in the new one. In the name wise, it is called National Assets Reconstruction Company Limited, NARCL. Similarly, assets management company already available, but this related one is called the National Assets Management Company Limited. These two things are going to be taken care of. This stressed asset, that is non-performing assets that is available in the existing banking sector, and they are going to take care of this, that recovery process and the management of that assets, and through that stressed asset that available in the existing banking sector balance sheet, that are going to be cleaned and make it show a better balance sheet. That is the ultimate purpose of this. So it is going to be a one-step solutions to India's escalating the bad loan menace. So a one-step solution. So bad bank is not going to be a continuous organization according to that announcement. So now they are established with that objective of cleaning that. Once this process is over, then there is no need for this. Otherwise, it will give a wrong notions to the public. That is why the solution is going to be a one-step solutions to address what? To address that the bad loan, that is non-performing loan, that and all keep on increasing in the Indian banking sectors. Okay, so that is why, as I mentioned, NARCL. This NARCL, we call it as National Assets Restructuring Company Limited. Actually, this is called a bad bank. So that has been registered in Mumbai, and recently, the 7th July of this month only, that NARC was set up with an authorized capital of 100 crores, and it has been classified as a union government company according to the register of companies files. It shows that union government company. So the government initiation to establish NARCL to clean up the bad loans and restructure the bank balance sheet. So at present, that is headed by the Padma Kumar Madhavan Nair, yes, just as an expert from the State Bank of India, is going to be the MD, and other directors are the IBA Chief Executive, Indian Banks Association, Chief Executive Sunil Mehta, and SBI Deputy Managing Director Salil Sukumar Nair, and the Canara Bank representative Ajit Kumar and Ajit Krishnan Nair. These are all the other members. So this is the bad bank that is introduced and established as per the budgetary announcement made by our finance minister. Okay. Now, the basic idea behind this establishment of this NARCL, the otherwise called bad bank, is to clean up the India's financial system. And why the cleaning up is required? Because across the world, every country having the bad assets, the non-performing assets, but across the world, in the volume of bad assets is more in India. The value of the world bad assets is more in India. So some kind of cleaning up process is required to that make our Indian financial system, banking system in a better one. So for that only this organization established, and it is going to allow the banks to reduce the losses, and it helps the bank to improve the lending process. Lending is very, very important, that to bank lending. Without bank lending, there is no possibilities of economic growth. You know the present economic situation now due to the various situations, including the pandemic COVID-19. So that our growth rate is now contrasting. I think negative growth rate we are having. So for that to improve that, we need some kind of funding. More lending is required. More pumping of money into that economy is required. So that is possible only through the banks. But the banks are already facing a lot of problem with the existing one. Then how to do that? For that only this solution. Not only that, if they want to lend, they need more of liquidity, as I mentioned earlier. So the liquidity related risk also the banks are facing. They are not able to collect back that money, not only related to the existing bad loans now due to the moratorium period and all given by the government through the RBI to the banks due to the pandemic, that also increase the value of this bad loans, NPA, non-performing assets. So to clean up all these things, to clean up the balance sheet and to do this window dressing, this bad bank concept conceptualized as suggested by IBA, Indian Bankers Association, and introduced in the budget. Now it is established. They started the process. Okay. Now, as I mentioned, it is nothing but restructuring of balance sheet. That the workshop name is restructuring of the banks, corporate banks. So here, restructuring of banks, that include restructuring of balance sheet, the financial components also, restructuring of assets available in the banks also. So that I am going to highlight how this restructuring is going to be happen, how the window dressing is going to be happen in the name of bad bank. So that is possible only through the balance sheet. So you should know about the balance sheet. I think most of the commerce, management, and other related faculty members are available. You know about the balance sheet, but just I want to recall some of the conceptual framework related to the balance sheet, especially the bank balance sheet. Just one slide related to the normal balance sheet. You know all about that. Our balance sheet that contains the source of fund and application of fund. The liability that indicates the sources from which the organization raise the funds. Normally, the first basic source is capital. Through the capital, they raise the long-term funds, and that money put it in the form of fixed assets. So fixed assets is the form of building, machinery, and other equipments required for production and distributing the goods for doing the business. Fixed asset they invested. If that the fixed assets, for investing the fixed asset, the capital is not sufficient, then they go for long-term borrowings in the form of issuing the debt. So with the help of that, they invest in the fixed assets, and along with that, they funded in the current assets also to do the day-to-day operation. Then over the period of time that they will the current liabilities. So this is the basic balance sheet. Capital, long-term liability, current liability are the sources from which the organization raise the funds. And the two way of investment, fixed assets and the current assets, through that they will get the profit. So subsequently they will get the profit, and that to the profit, the additional profit if they have, they put it in the form of other investment also. So this is the complete normal balance sheet of an organization, any organization. So that balance sheet consists of these two things. One is in the form of source from which the corporate, the organization, the firm raise the funds, we call it as liabilities. And the means they which spend the money, that is application of money, that is in the form of assets, mainly current assets and the fixed assets. Then in addition to that, some kind of the investment also. Okay. Now we'll come to the bank balance sheet. Recently published the State Bank of India balance sheet I have downloaded and I put the figures here. But this is a corporate balance, normal corporate balance sheet. The components are looking like this, but in the case of the bank balance sheet, the components are likely to be a different one. That to those who are teaching the bank balance sheet, they know that around 11 to 12, I think strictly speaking, 12 different statements, we call it as schedules, that is required to prepare the bank balance sheet. Out of that, the 5 belong to liabilities, that is source of fund mentioned, and the 6 belongs to the assets, and 1 is common, we call it as a contingent liability. I have listed out the liabilities of the bank. 1 is capital, number 2 is called reserves and surplus, number 3 deposits, number 4 borrowings, then the last liability is called other liabilities and provision. These are all the 5 important liabilities, otherwise called the sources from which the organization raise the money. Then use these money, put it in the form of assets, cash with in hand and balance with RBI, money at call and short notice and balance with other banks, investment, loans, fixed assets, other assets. So these are all the 6 and all assets. 1, as I mentioned, is called, 12th one is called contingent liabilities. Okay, this is the normal bank balance sheet. So this balance sheet only they are going to restructure it. That we call it as the bad bank process. So here something, the bad element is available. So through this process, they are going to eliminate this. That is the concept of this. Okay, so now you please look into that. This is the balance sheet. Here you see that deposit is the very, very important source of fund for the bank. If you recall the definition or meaning of the fund, banks, you know well about that, accepting the deposit and lending the loans and advances. So these two are the major activities of the bank. They collect the deposit from the public, those who are having the surplus money, and that money they given to other section of the people, those who need the money in the form of loans and advances. So these are all the 2 important elements. So deposit is the source for the bank. Then that loans and advances is the application. So deposit is the liability. The loans and advances is an assets. Okay. If the assets and all good, whatever the loans given by the bank, whether they recovered along with the proper interest on due date at the installment time, if they collected regularly, that loan become good loan, a performing loan. It performs well and generate income to that bank. If that particular loans and advances, if that the banks are not able to collect the installment as well as the interest, then we call it as a non-performing. If the loans and advances, the banks are not in a position to recover, then we call it as a non-performance. So if it is a non-performance, then they are not able to collect the money, then in turn, they are not able to pay the deposits. So then it will affect the regular day-to-day banking process that leads to the liquidity problem. That is the basic thing. But okay, it is one point. Another point, nowadays, the banks not only using the deposit, they used to borrow the money from the Reserve Bank of India and other financial institutions in the name of borrowings, and they put the money in the form of investment also. So earlier, the commercial banks mainly focusing on deposit collection, lending, loans and advances. But now they are doing the investment also. They are making the investment in the market, different markets. So investment also one of the assets here. So this is the 4 important component of the banks. So 2 important sources, deposit and borrowings, investment, loans and advances. Then you may ask the question, sir, what is the role of the capital here? And the other part, I'll show the actual figure here, that you see the State Bank of India balance sheet on March 31st, 2021, the latest balance sheet. The latest balance sheet, actual figure I am showing here. This is the actual figure, the figures in thousands it is given. You see here, in the source of fund, in the liabilities, you see the deposit, this much is the deposit. The highest value, the highest source, the highest value of the liability is the deposit. On the other side, you see the loans. So these are all the 2 important elements. One is source, another one is application. Along with that, you see the borrowings and investment. Now you may ask the question, sir, the reading these values and all difficult. So it would be better to know in terms of percentage related to on total balance sheet. That also I calculated. You see here. For example, if 100% is the total, 100 is the total of the balance sheet, out of that, 81% of the source that is from the deposits. Then loans and advances 54%. So mainly that deposit only given to utilized for giving the loans and advances. So this is the actual figure. Even if you want, you download the latest annual reports of the State Bank of India, then you can able to get this data. You see that out of the 100% the source, 81% of the source, the State Bank of India collected only through deposits. And from that, out of the total utilization of assets, that is application, the 54% is given, utilized in the form of giving loans and advances. Then you see investment 29%. Some of the money they put it in the form of government investment according to the government instruction, some market investment. Then if the deposits and all not sufficient, sometime due to emergency, they borrow the money. This is the component. So here only one important point, you see the capital in the first point, 0.02, that is the capital proportion according to the latest that balance sheet of the State Bank of India. So the tier 1, if you take the reserves and surplus, tier 1, tier 2 capital, otherwise with tier 1, tier 2 capital, put together it comes to around 6%. So after, if you convert it into 100. That is why the capital adequacy ratio, CAR, capital adequacy ratio, that now according to the Basel norm, they are insisting to maintain minimum 8%, but RBI it is fixed as 9%, but they are maintaining 12%. But the 12% on what? 12% on the weight assets, that is the risk-weighted assets, not on the balance sheet total. Here on the balance sheet total, it is 0.02%, and reserves and surplus 5.579%. But in terms of the risk-weighted asset, that is a separate topic, I don't want to touch it now. So it is necessarily, according to RBI, it is necessarily be 9%. Okay. Now that point here, I'll come to the point. Capital is less. Utilization of deposit and borrowings is more for loans and advances. You see, in terms of percentage, 90% of the liabilities, that is collection of money, source of money, belong to these 2 categories. 84% of this major category, that is belong to this. This is the balance sheet. Here is the problem, you see, friends. Here only the problem occurs. The problem is related to this one. So if this 54%, if the banks are not in a position to collect from the lenders, from the borrowers, then it will give the problem. Then if they are not able to collect this, then it become a non-performing assets, that is the loans and advances. It is non-performing loans and advances or assets, then they may find a problem in repaying these liabilities. Liquidity problem occurs. Okay. Now, This is regarding SBI. I have collected one more, another private sector bank, HDFC, one of the leading top private sector bank, that too also the 31st March balance sheet. There also the same data. You see that? This is the value in terms of thousands, the highest value deposit borrowings, investment and loans and advances. See, in terms of percentage, 76% deposits. Loans and advances, 64%. Borrowings 0.77, HDFC borrowings less than the SBI borrowings. Investment 25%. So just I'm comparing this by a simple statement. You see here, this is 77% source, this is the 90% application. So HDFC that is playing little bit safely than that SBI. So 90% of deployment of fund, utilization of fund, but that major source here, deposit and the borrowings is 77%. The capital is little bit higher than the SBI, and they have a very good reserves and surplus. So that with that they are managing somewhat, and other assets investment are little bit less there. Very effectively they are managing compared to this. This is the comparative, the KPI. KPI means key performance indicators related to the deposit, loans, borrowings, and the investments. That is in terms of percentage on total balance sheet. Okay, friends, faculty members, please see, this is the thing. So from that, now you please understand the importance of these two components, deposits and loans and advances, especially. So the banks are in a position to return back the money as and when the customer demands. So when they can able to do, only they have a sufficient money. How do they that make it ready? If they have effective that recovery of loans and advances, if it is possible. Okay, so that is very, very important. So the loans and advances that play a very, very important role in the asset side. So that assets is a very important assets. The highest percentage of investment, that is utilization of money in the form of loans and advances by the bank. So if it becomes bad, this amount is not in a position to recover, then it will affect the entire the banking system and the financial system and the economy. A chain of effect is there. So that we have to look into very effectively. That is why this process. So here you see this loans and advances, we call it as, if we are not able to recover properly, then we call it as non-performing assets. How to do that? If we recover properly, then it is called standard. If the particular borrower not paying the interest and the principal amount continuously for 90 days, then it is called non-performing assets, and other subcategories and all available. So here this is non-performing assets. You see, this is the major non-performing assets calculation. This non-performing assets calculated from this on loans and advance. This is an assets. So this is an assets. These assets and all now categorized into this. If that anything that any borrower not paying that money properly within 90 days, interest along with the principal, then we categorize it into non-performing assets. Accordingly, some provision also required. We have to deduct that value from the profit. We have to take that value. So profit is going to be reduced, and it will give, the profit is reduced, it will give a false impression in the market, not only the local market, in the international market also. So NPA, that we call it as stressed assets, that in the banking sector, that is a very, very important one. Managing the NPA is very, very important now. A simple data. So the non-performing loan ratio, now the financial year up to this, you see the projection is 13.5%. So over the period of time, you see that it keep on increasing. Non-performing assets, that is the loans and advances which are not properly recovered from the borrower within the stipulated time, both the principal along with the interest also. So then we call it as a non-performing assets. This is the ratio of non-performing assets on the total loans and advances. So now, because of that, if they are not able to recover properly, the lending also going to be reduced. You see that over the period of time, Because of this NPA, non-performing assets, banks are not having sufficient money. They are not in a position to invest. The lending also be reduced. If they are not able to lend, then that economy is going to affect. So industrial activity is going to affect. The financial system is going to affect. So some kind of action is required to look into this NPA. That solution, that we call it as this NARCL, right? So some of the other important data that I am highlighting here, the gross NPA of the bank, that is as a percentage of total assets, increased from 2.3% in 2008. Now it is in 2020, it is 9.3%. 2.3%, now it is 9.3%. In addition, now RBI expects by September 21, coming 21, the NPA or the bad loan, or especially the public sector bank, is going to be under serious stress, and it is going to touch an alarming percentage of 17.6. That is the prediction. That is due to so many reasons. And if time permits, I will narrate all these things a little bit later. But first, I want to highlight what kind of role the bad bank is going to play, the NRC is going to play, NARC is going to play, that I will explain. So every year they keep on this non-performing assets we call the bad loans. The bad assets is keep on increasing. Okay, so escalating NPA that require the bank to make higher amount of provisions in the balance sheet from the profit and loss account. So from the profit and loss account, they have to take some amount and create some profit to meet out the non-performing assets. So profit is going to be reduced, otherwise it will leads to loss. So that indicates an increasing proportion of the bank's assets that is ceased to generate income for the bank. So they are not going to produce income because of the non-performing assets and lowering the bank profitability, and it reduced the further credit sanctioning also. So under this situation, friends, that are so many efforts are required. Already the government is taken the efforts. I will list out a little bit later. But one of the initiative is the bad bank. So we hope that, especially as a banking, that faculty members, I hope, so it might cure the Indian banking sector. So according to me, the new concept of the National Assets Reconstruction Company Limited, we call it as a bad bank. So it might cure or it might give some solution to cure the Indian banking sector by way of restructuring the balance sheets and restructuring the that bad assets or cleaning the bad or stressed assets. Okay. Now, apart from that, it is one point. Banking business is more of risk business. The banks are facing different type of risk: liquidity risk, interest rate risk, credit risk, and the market risk also. Because that all the banking business actively involving in pumping the money into that economy to strengthen the economy. While doing that, they are facing lot of the problem that we call it as the risk. I will highlight one or two risks here in the form of balance sheet. You see that, as I mentioned, the deposit and loans and all the two components in the bank balance sheet, that is the two sources. Deposit is the major source, the loans and bonds the major form of application. Now, different deposits that are collected from the different customers, and that the deposits, some deposits are current deposits, some deposits are fixed deposits, some are recurring deposits. So different maturity date for repaying the deposit. Similarly, if you see the loans, short-term loan, medium-term loan, long-term loan, different loans with this different due dates. So different deposits, different due date, and in addition to that, the peculiar feature is making the payment on demand. That is the main feature of bank. So loans, they are giving different due date, different that recovery times. So now there is no perfect match between the deposit and loan. This loan will collect and give to the deposit. This deposit will collect and give to the loan. That system is not there. There is no matching. There is an absolute mismatch between deposit and the loan. Here only the risk occurs, and here is the that bank's role is to manage all these things. So this one we call it as this called that sometimes if we more deposit we keep, then that it leads to excess liquidity. Otherwise, if we lend all the money, that shortage of liquidity. So that balance between these two is very much important. That we call it as uncertainty prevails. That matching risk we call it as liquidity risk. If proper liquidity is maintained always to pay the deposit back and give the loans accordingly, they have to collect the money from the lenders and to manage the liquidity, make the cash available to perform the banking operation. But it is a risky one because of the uncertainty as mentioned prevail in that we call it as liquidity risk. Right. Then I will come to the second one. Different deposits and loans are there. In addition, they borrow the money and put it in the form of investment also. Right. So different deposits, as you know, different borrowings. Similarly, different maturity dates and repayment dates, interest rates, different loans, different type of investment in the different markets, different maturity dates. Right. Now here you see deposit one rate, loans and advances another rate. Borrowing one rate, another one is investment in another rate. Different interest rate. So that different maturity dates. So this one, so we call that affects the net margin, interest margin income. So that also they can affect, the banker is in a position to manage efficiently. That we call it as interest rate risk. That we call it as interest rate, managing this. So this risk also properly the manager or the bank management has to do that. Then the next third one we call it as different deposit. I know well about all these concepts, right? Different periods. But here you see the possibilities of default, possibilities of that NPA, stressed assets, bad assets. So that leads to what we call it as the default risk, otherwise called credit risk. So liquidity risk. Then we call the second one is interest rate risk. Then here that credit risk. Then the here only that market risk. So now the banks are doing more amount of investment in the market in the form of different securities. Sometimes due to some crisis, if the market is moving to that adverse level, reverse level, that the banks are not in a position to get a proper return from the investment from the market. So there is a possibilities of loss. Here the market price risk is there, market risk also be there. So banking business consists of full of risk. Because of this unexpected, now the pandemic is an unexpected one, uncertain one. All of a sudden we are facing all these things. So to overcome all these things, some kind of initiation is required. So a bad bank becomes particularly important in this scenario. So probably this might cure the risk faced by the Indian banking sector in different ways. How it is going to be. But what are the other available options? That other basic option is from the profit they can provide certain provision, from that they can meet out the non-performing assets to some extent, right? The second one is the government, especially for the public sector bank. India mainly with the public sector bank, you know well about that. So that play a very, very important role for the economic development activities. More number of the activities that bank operations are through the PSU only, public sector banks only, PSBs only. So the government over the period of time pumping more amount of capital to overcome these non-performing losses, recapitalization. So according to me, around 2 lakhs crores so far in the last few years, the government pumped into that banking system, they given in the form of capital. So recapital to the bank and increase the capital amount to for what? To give more lending and increase the liquidity. Another option, that merger of public sector banks, I think some of the other resource person is going to talk about it. I think sometime they may already discussed. So merger of the public sector banks also, that one of the option for meeting out the non-performing asset. There are so many objectives, but the major objective of merger of public sector bank is to manage or handle the non-performing assets. Right. Then another option, another card also available with the government, that is the privatization of public sector banks. So already this Central Bank of India and IOB Bank that are under the list, the government is proposed to that sell that public sector bank into private sector banks. According to the government, the private sector banks are managing well all this kind of a process, the lending process and recovery process. So they want to privatize. These are all the options. Apart from that, the IBC code, insolvency and the bankruptcy code. So through that, they give more power to the bank and simplify the legal process to sell the guaranteed assets. Otherwise, to take legal action against the borrower to get back the loan. That is IBC code. And earlier we call it as the SAFASI Act. The SAFASI Act is the new version of this SAFASI Act, modified more that comfortable one, and the more added one we call it as the IBC code, insolvency and bankruptcy code. Through that also, the government wants to come back from the non-performing assets. Apart from all these five, now the bad bank. The government introduced a new concept in the last budget. This month, 7th, they legalize it. They set up this bad bank. We call it as, that is, National Assets Restructuring Company Limited. Through that also, they wants to manage the non-performing assets. We call it as the bad assets. So the first five are the other options already initiated by the government, and then the last one. Then you may ask the question, sir, all these options and all available, including this IBC is the best one, that already in the recent past, IBC helps the banking sector to recover the money from the defaulters very quickly. Especially that in the recent days, through the IBC, that the banks has taken lot of efforts to get back the money from Vijay Mallya and the Bhushan Steels and from this the Geeta Jewelry, that Nirav Modi, these people and all. Okay, so the defaulters, from the defaulters, many people. So the thing is, IBC code is okay, but you may ask the question, sir, what is the need for this NARCL? So that thing is, IBC, after introducing that IBC, while implementing the IBC, that is Insolvency Bankruptcy Code, all of a sudden in 2020, March, from February onwards, we got this pandemic. So complete lockdown. And still that we are in the partial lockdown process. So due to that industrial activities and all completely blocked. And the economic activities and all stalled. Now that the people, those who borrowed the money from the financial institution, they are not in a position to repay. Government already given the moratorium, that is that extension of time for repaying. So now most of the loans and advances under moratorium. So now you see that now it is very difficult under this situation, under the pandemic, it is very difficult for the financial bank and the financial institution to apply the IBC. That is why then another concept of bad bank introduced now in this year, in the financial year, to meet out this NPA crisis, to recover the non-performing assets and manage this and clean up the balance sheet. They initiated this process. So let us think about, discuss about the process in the bad bank now. Okay, how the bad bank is going to function, how it is going to perform this process. So this background I have explained. Now you should know how it is going to function. Please listen to it in the form of balance sheet only. I am going to explain this process. Now you know that this is the balance sheet, SBI balance sheet. Here you see, friends, this is the loans and advances. Here a tentative data that I put, this 4.0, that is 4. For example, 4,000 crores rupees is that NPA. For that, a provision is created that by the bank. So Actually, it is 54.019 crores. Assume that. Out of that, 4 crore is a non-performing. That is, loan is not able to recover. Now, what kind of effect it will give? So, that provision we have to deduct from the profit. It will reduce the profit. You see, it will reduce the profit. From the profit. Sometimes, if the provision keep on increasing, means that the profit also keep on decreasing and sometimes leads to loss. And if it is the loss, means that it will affect the capital. And the banks are not in a position to dividend to the shareholders. Then by seeing the balance sheet and not getting that dividend or some of the benefits, it will affect the market value. So the banking market share, that will come down, the market capitalization comes down. So a lot of other effects are there. So here the NPA is there and the NPA needs a provision. Because of that provision, the profit is going to be reduced. So here we reduce this, that NPA from the loans and advances, the provision. We reduce the provision from this. So now, out of this 54 crores, 50 crores only going to be the good loans. 4 crore is going to be, assume that is going to be a bad loan, non-performing assets. For that, the provision is created, so profit reduced. That you please understand now. Now I will come to this. For example, this much. Now, this is the total assets. We call it as the total loans and advances. Please listen carefully now. So now assume that a tentative value are given. That 10% is a non-performing. 10, that is 10 crore out of 54 crores. 10 crore is a non-performing assets. Assume that 10 crore is a non-performing assets. Okay. Now you please see that 8 is the net non-performing. What is the difference between the 10 and the 8? That means the 2 we given as the provision. Okay. So that 10 is the gross non-performing assets. Some provision we have made. Now 8 is the net value. So that long time, that loans and advances and all not in a position to recover by the bank. So it is a non-performing assets for the State Bank of India. So 8 crores net non-performing asset, that is a bad loan. Right now, so that it's keep on, this value is that increasing. If escalating NPA requires a bank to make higher provision, that you have to create higher provision, then it will give loss in the balance sheet. This indicates the increasing proportion of the bank assets. That means that every time the non-generating income assets only appears. So that means the banks, that increasing the proportion of banks assets cease to generate income for the bank, lowering the bank profitability, and not only that, it reduces the ability of the bank to give the further credit. They are not able to give. Profit also reduced. They are not able to lend the more money. And the assets and all non-active assets. So what to do now? So now the NARCL is going to do some work for that only. What it is going to do? For example, this is the assets. As according to that, net non-performing assets is 8. Okay. Now you see, friends, here only the bad bank. The NARC, please listen. Here only the bad bank came into picture. Now the bad bank look into that. Otherwise, the bank, given that, approach the bad bank to take these assets. So now the bad bank here. So now the banks are comfortable in collecting the money, no problem. Otherwise, so now that otherwise the banks in a position to approach the NARC and give this 8 crore NPA. It is only a tentative, a sample value I have given. Okay. Now NRC came here and NRC revalue this 8 crore rupees net NPA, non-performing assets, with the help of the expert. They have the resources, assets management people are there. With the help of that, they revalue it and take it for certain value. They have 4 packets, that packet in different categories. So that I have mentioned here. Now, the National Assets Restructuring Company, what they are doing is, this 8 crore worth of NPA, they are looking into that. When did they given that loan? what are securities collected, to whom they given, what is the nature of the business now, how they are functioning, is there any possibility to get back the money, how much time required to get back the money, what is the nature of the industry. Everything with the help of the expert, the NARC evaluate and revalue into 4 categories. If it is the worst means, they put it as 10%, otherwise 20%, 30%, 40%. That the 4 are the 4 categories of valuation of this 8. So for example, if the net assets value valued at 10% means, that means 0.80. So if it is 8 crore means 0.80. That much only that the revalued, the loan value. If it is, sorry, 20 means 1.6 crores. If it is 30 means, 30% means 3.2 crores, 2.4 crores. If it is 40% means that 3.2 crores. It is 50% mean another one. Like that, a different category of valuation. The NRC is to do that. So NRC revalued the NPA, net NPA under different categories. Then after the valuation, what the NRC is doing is, so for example, after going through the document company, visiting all these things, if they valued at 40% means total loans and advances 54 crores. Out of that, 8 crore is a non-performing. Now NARC, what they are doing, I have gone through all your documents. Now I am ready to take your 8 crore worth of loan at 40% value. That means they are ready to take it as 3.2 crores. Instead of going all the 100% as bad debts, it is better to give this assets to NARC and get this 3.2. But 3.2 also, what they are, how they are disposing, that is a different point. Now this 8, for example, this bank accepts and ready to give this 8 crore worth of net NPA to the NARC at 3.40% mean 3.2. Now 3.2 crores, 8 crore worth of non-performing assets. That particular bank, for example, State Bank, say for example, that sold to that particular bad bank, we call it as NARC at 3.2 crores only according to the valuation. Whether all the 3.2 crores, whether they given back the money, cash to the bank to pump the liquidity or use this money? No. How they are giving? Out of this, you see, only 15% of this amount, that is 3.2 crores. The 15% of 3.2 crores means 15%, 0.48. So immediately the bad bank, we call it as NARC, will give 48 lakhs to that particular bank immediately, and the remaining 85% in the form of security receipts. That is 2.72 crores in the form of securities. Documents. That is for the document 5 years value. So now 8 crore NPA, it's become a valuable assets of 3.2 crores. The balance sheet is restructured. 8 crores is taken back. Instead of completing, washed out this, clean this 8 lakhs, out of this 8 lakh, immediately they are getting back 48 lakhs, out of this 8 crores, 48 lakhs cash, 85% in the form of security, a document, security receipts, documents, a guarantee documents given. So the banker, they put the document in the form of investment. For that very important feature here, that is the difference between the previous NRC and the ARC and the present one. The ARC already available. The previous ARC is 5:95. Please listen. The previous assets restructuring company, what they are doing is 5% only cash given, remaining 95% security. It is point number 1. Previous ARC. That is assets restructuring company. Now it is called bad bank. That is the NARC. Their proportion is 15:85. 15% of not total NPA. 15% of revalued. They revaluation under 4 category. They call it as different buckets, 4 buckets. So 15% given in the form of cash and the 85% in the form of securities And here the point is the security is guaranteed by the government of India. Earlier, in the case of ARC, there is no such guarantee. Only the established ARC only given the guarantee. There is no background government guarantees there. But here, now in the case of bad bank, this SR, the security is having 80, the government guarantee. Government is, RBI is given the guarantee. So now both the things are valid one. Instead of wiping out all these 8 lakhs bad assets, now they are getting 3.2 as the assets. So how they are putting this 3.2? So one is in the form of this 48 in the form of cash. So cash value added now 48. Then this 2.72 added in the form of investment. Now here also one point advantage is there because this investment their SR in the form of security they given. This investment also the particular bank use it as a security and they can sell it in the market and collect the money or use it as the security for borrowing the money from the other institution, including the foreign institution, because it is backed up by the government. So from this 2.72 crores also, they can raise the money. See, this is the NARC. See friends, so now this is the way this NARC is working, NARC, bad bank. We simply call it as a bad bank is working. Now you see our balance sheet is cleaned now. So this 8 crore over the period of time, this 8 crore in our example, over the period of time we are putting and at last we completely eliminate all this value and it gives huge loss to the bank and give the it affect the regular operation also. Instead of that, based on that, they valued at different buckets, 40%, 30%, 50% and all. Sell it to the bad bank and they immediately given out of the sales price 15% given cash. That money also we can use and the remaining given in the form of SR, investment securities. That also we put it in the balance sheet to strengthen the balance sheet. Not only that, we by quoting this we can avail the loan. It gives a good picture about the company. So this is the window dressing. This is the cleaning of the balance sheet. So this is the way this bad bank works. This is the bad bank process. Okay, friends, that the structure now. This is the process. So I have clearly explained the process, how the bad bank is working now to restructuring the balance sheet. Now the balance sheet is restructuring. So this 58 crores, out of these 58 crores, for example, if that 10 lakhs, 10 crores or 8 crore is bad loan means instead of eliminating or wiping out these 8 crores, then now through the bad bank, we are getting back this amount. So balance sheet is now strengthened. There is no bad NPA, non-performance. There is no provision required. Balance sheet is looking very nice now. And with the help of the balance sheet, we can able to attract the investment. And with the help of the cash balance and investment, the bank can lend the money liberally now. This is the process, my dear friends, regarding the bad bank process. Okay, now, how the organization structure of this? This is not a government, 100% government institution. Government is giving only the guarantee for this 85% securities. That is the government role, only background guarantee only. But the capital, you see the right hand side pie chart, this one, that is the beauty of this concept now, is completely restructuring. So 68% of the capital required by the bank is going to be given by the public sector bank, 22.5% by the private sector bank, and other financial institution 9.1. So from the public sector bank, they collected the capital. So for them, it is an investment, that additional investment, that is also. And from that, if they have the NPA, then they give that amount in the form of NPA, that restructuring value. See that is why you see that merger taken place now. So some kind of good banking system is required to invest the money for establishing the bad bank or some kind of financial institution. That is why the weaker bank is merged with the stronger bank to strengthen the bank balance sheet, and with the help of the strength, they can invest in a particular bank. So from the public sector bank, they collect the money. They are all the contributors of capital, 68%. 22.5% private sector, financial institution 9.1%. So one hand they take the money, another hand they put the money. Through that they make it that system more effective, decorative one, that dressed one, that is window dressed one. So now come to the left hand side. Now you see the other side. So it is completely this owned by banks and the financial institution, but we can call it as a triple P also, private, public, private partnership also, because that the securities, the 85% securities given by this bad bank is supported by the government. So that in terms of guarantee, the government is playing the role, and that mainly these institutions are operating this. We call it as NOFHC. We call it non-operative financial holding of money. So they are not doing the regular banking operations and other things, and not doing any operative services, but they are doing this, the two activities. One is assets reconstruction, another one is assets management. Here there are two components. One is NARCL, that is National Assets Restructuring Company Limited. Another one is National Assets Management Company Limited. So this duty, this first organization duty is to verify the balance sheet and assess the NPA and value the NPA, and that try to settle that process, number one. Then after taking that assets, that hand over to that AMC, Assets Management Company. So their role is to convert it into securities and market it into that securities in the market, and help the company to make it available readily in the market to sell and to perform the transaction. So that 85% security properly managed by this AMC, NAMC, Assets Management Company Limited. These are all the structure, the structure of the bad bank, that is the National Assets Reconstruction Company Limited. Okay, so that is why whatever the given in the diagrammatic form I am explaining here, there are two units of structure. One is ARC, mainly to consolidate the assets purchased from the bank. AMC is an assets management company. ARC, assets reconstruction. AMC is an asset management company to manage the stressed assets, to manage the assets that in the ARC till such a time as it find a right buyer at a suitable price. So after taking that value, managing that particular assets and all the process and all, securitization, the collecting the money, all this process, so that the assets management company is doing this. Okay, so the government earlier to infuse capital into the ARC to take care of the purchase of the specific assets. So now that a single firm act as a buyer of their assets for ultimate disposal and the realization of true value. That is the earlier expectation, but the initial expectation, but this is the proposed structure. One is they are restructuring the assets, another one is managing the assets. The process flow, now you see friends, initially they identified 68 NPA from the different banks. So now that 68 legacy NPA, they call it as legacy, 68 loans. That number is 68, but the total value of that 68 loan is 2.22 lakhs crores. 2.22 lakh crores, not 2.22 crores. 2.22, that is 2,22,000 lakh crores. That much exposure of bad loan in the banking sector now, that too related to 68 banks, 68 loans. So that from that 68 loans of this value of 2.22 lakh crores, now NARCL, they valued only for 42,580 crores. 2,22,000 crores value of that bad loan, that reduced to, that is value at NPV now here is 42,580 crores under different four packets. Whatever I mentioned, 10% some loan, 40%, 30%, 50%, they valued. So that 42,508 crores, out of that, 15% they are given as cash. Remaining 85% they were given to the AMC. They will make it a security and manage the security in the form of investment given to that bank. So apart from that 68, so that they want to, now they are doing this some more addition of this kind of addition deletion of this list in association or consultation with Indian Bankers Association IBA. So to avoid the delays and time consuming the valuation, the assets to be transferred under this 15:85, that is cash 15% and 85% the security receipt. So why this proportion? To avoid the delay only for doing this. Now the question is whether it is a mandatory to transfer as per regulatory guidelines. So there is no compulsion for the bank to do that. If the bank is having confidence to get back the money, they can do that. But what they are suggesting is why you are spending your valuable time. Now most of the banks are now having a separate team, a vertical for managing the bad assets, NPA. A bad assets vertical now operated by a banks. Now that their duty is only to look into that and look into the recovery process. Don't do this. Give to us. Give to the bad bank. We'll take care. You please look into the other process. I will clean your balance sheet. With the help of the balance sheet, you further raise the money, issue the capital, collect the money, and further go for the investment properly. Based on the past bad experience, then that bitter experience, overcome all these unwanted things and to do a better banking transaction. That is the suggestion given by the bad bank. So there is no mandatory, but it is advised to give the bad loans to the bad bank to process all these things. Okay, so at the book value, the net of the minimum regulatory provision based on the earlier NPA date. So how they are doing this based on the latest NPA date, how much is the NPA, from that they deduct the provision, the remaining book value they taken as from that only the 10% value, 40% value, 30% value they take it. In some cases you see, for example, take an example, for Bhushan Steels, they given 600 crores loan, but 100% provision already given. For that also the bad bank given, right sir, you are having 1,600 or 600 crores, right, but we'll take it as 100 crores. There is no packet valuation. So based on that, some norm they are doing that. So now within 6 months of acquisition of these loans, this National Assets Management Company Limited, so they established the price discovery of these security receipts, the 85% value, and the selling lenders shall make MTM, market to market provision on SR basis. That is, MTM is the biggest advantage for selling this SR into that market. That helps to improve the liquidity of the bank. Okay, so the same points that I am highlighting here, you see, initially a list of 68 banks, and outstanding, that too, very important point is the loan, mainly the corporate loan, that more than 500 crores exposure loan, only they listed that number is initially at 68, that value is 2.22 lakh crores, that only now considering that too under NBV, net book value, after deducting the provision. But this is the assets they are taking. So in the first case, they are taking only 68 assets, that is loans, that loans of more than 500 crores worth of loans, and all these loans, they are deducting the provision, net book value based only they are taking at different valuations. But some of the thing they are staying out, that not taken into account. Which one? The financial service providers, like some of the non-banking financial companies, mutual funds, some of the financial broking agents, their loans and advances and all not considered, not taken by this bad bank. And some of the accounts, so they classified as fraud. It is not a found, it is fraud. So they classified as fraud. This is a fraud assets. fraud. So sometimes you see some people, they through some kind of fraudulent document or that fraudulent way they avail the loan in the accounts, they treat it as a fraud loan. That fraud loan also not considered by the bad bank to recover. Only a normal process loan which are not recovered, that only the fraud loan. For example, our Nirav Modi case, that is a fraud. That is by using that this technology and this bills, they make the fraud and avail that money. So that fraud transaction and all not in a position taken by this. Only the normal business transaction. And after that, due to unexpected events, that if anything that bad has happened, that they consider. Okay. Then accounts having under the IBC process or some of the liquidation process, third and fourth point. The IBC means the insolvency and the bankruptcy code. Just I mentioned already, I think. So that already there are so many steps taken by the government to recover the non-performing bad assets. One is IBC, that is the new version of the Surfaces Act. Under IBC, the government now given more power to sell the assets of the borrower and get back. So it strengthen or speed up the process of recovery. So the assets which are under this IBC, that assets also not taken by the bad. So these are all the 4 points. So that stays out from the bad bank, the revaluation and bad bank process. Okay. Now, what is the objective, sir? So the objective is to allow Indian commercial banks to focus on core, the business of lending. Sir, your business is collecting the money, deposit collection, lending. So you please concentrate on lending. Anyway, knowingly or unknowingly, by way you have given the loan, it becomes NPA at a one-time solution. We will take care of that. We hand over to that. Remaining the next, by following the proper process, look into that, the lending process, because under this pandemic, this process, the lending is more important. So 2008 crisis, I want to recall here. During the 2008 Lehman Brothers, that crisis, that housing loan bubble crisis, you see, during that time, that across the world, various countries and all affected. But we can able to sustain, we manage the things. India managed the things, not suffered a lot. Why? So at that time, that the Reserve Bank of India governor, then Reserve Bank of India governor and the government, they concentrate more on the strengthening the financial system. You please know that during that time, after 2008, they pumped more amount of money into the market through the bank and lend more money, and they increase the money circulation, and through that they improve the economic activity. And that only that is one of the reasons for saving that India from the 2008 financial crisis. But I can say that liberal lending is one of the reasons for this now, this huge NPA. Okay, so what I want to mention here is, now the banks are asked to concentrate more on lending during this pandemic period. The industry required more and more money to that restart the business back into that normal track. They want each and every businessman, irrespective of the size, they want more money. So the financial institutions are in a position to lend more money. Unless they clean the balance sheet, they are not in a position to do that, because some kind of constraint is there. If the balance sheet is having more provisions and more stressed assets, and if there is a loss, there is some technical clinch is there, problem is there to lend. So they want to, second point, they clean the balance sheet. And not only that, once they clean the balance sheet is looking beautiful and the window dressing, then we can attract more investors. They can issue the fresh capital into the market, raise the money, and through that also they can increase the loans. So through the bank, the fourth point, they can give the faster solution to the stressed assets. Apart from that, 85% of this the valued assets given in the form of security by the bad bank, the NARC, that also easily be traded, SRs trading. that also available. So these are all the 5 important objectives. With that only the bad bank established. So now the question, what happened to the existing bad bank? So the existing ARC. So existing ARC already there, but the difference already I have quoted that here in the new case, government guarantee for SR is there, and in the new case that rate is that the proportion of cash and securities 15 into 85. Previous ARC there is no government guarantee and it is 5:95. So now what happened to the existing ARC? They used to do the consolidation and helps to increase the capital base of some of the financial institutions and other things. Okay. So need in India, whether it is need in India, yes, it is required. So because for economic recovery, yeah, for economic, is there any question, please? Yeah, 2 minutes. Then I will give the time to that. Time is there. Okay, no problem. Time is there. Then I will open the floor for asking the questions. Okay. So economic recovery is there, and the government support that for dealing this, because the bad bank is going to operate by technically sound people. The government is going to give the guarantee also for this SR securities. So the government support is there. With the help of that, we can able to manage the NPA of the commercial banks through the bad bank. So that economic recovery also quickly we can. And why it is required? Because of this rising NPA. All these statistics and all already we have discussed. So keep on increasing. It is not advisable to continue this process, especially after this pandemic. That the industry is in need of liquidity. So in order to pump the liquidity, more and money is required. Unless we clean up the balance sheet, so this liquidity is not possible to pump it into the market through the bank. So to overcome this rising NPA, it is required. And that if you see that international precedents, even now, the Malaysia successfully run that bad bank. So from that only our government then inherited much of the features. So one of the other countries is Malaysia. They are successfully operating that after 2008 financial crisis. They successfully implemented and operating the bad bank. And in Europe also, Sweden, France, and some of the other European countries also successfully operating this bad bank. So in international experience also there. So by keeping all these things, this is very much important. Okay, but some challenges also be there. The challenge is mobilizing the capital and finding the buyer for the bad assets. That too, the pandemic economy, it is a very, very challenging one. And with knowing all these challenges, only government taken this initiative. But mobilizing the capital to settle the bad loan is a difficult task. And but it is not addressing the underlying issue. The thing is, what the people are saying that, sorry, the bad bank, what they are going to do is they are going to take the stressed assets and they give the solution. But actually the problem is, most of the case, the problem is regarding the credit risk management is from the banker's point, the credit risk management. Another point, the system problem. Because of that system, I don't want to speak any politics here. So because of the political influence, more and more lendings and all given by the banks by force. And another way, that is the banks also not having experts, vertical, that is division, to do this credit risk management separately before lending, give the corporate lending. And most of the, as I 68 list are and all corporate loan. That means we are giving more importance to the corporate to overcome this. So that means the underlying issue is different. So that bad bank is not giving address to the basic core issue. It gives only solutions to the clean up the balance sheet and do the window dressing. And the next to provisioning issue tackled through recapitalization. So that is also possible. But again, recapitalization, infusing recapitalization of public sector bank means only our money, that is taxpayers' money. So here, that taxpayers' money again we can use for tackling the recapitalization. So recapitalization also we can do that. So that is one point mentioning. And at that this security later we are going to market. That market related risk is also there. And this former governor of RBI governor Raghuram Rajan said, bad bank may create a moral hazard and enable banks to continue the reckless lending practice, as I mentioned earlier. These kind of initiative taken by the government and taken care of this recovery process and bad bank means, it will give some wrong impression to the banker. We'll give the loan, if it is not coming, we'll hand out to the bad bank like that. That it will create some bad impression in the minds. That is a challenge. And already the previous proposal is there, and already other initiatives are there. So these proposals and how far this proposal and all suitable this to this, and that too under high NPA, how they are going to handle all these things. There is some challenges are there, and already ARC is there, already reconstruction, recapitalization is there. So this, by overcoming all these things, this new thing is a challenging one. And some of the ecosystem. Here, ecosystem means associated this system here, subsystem here is, the people here is, there are a lot of financial advisors, they are going to play important role here to give solutions to the bad bank to recover this, to settle this. And they are going to create a legal council to look into all the legal issues. And the sector-wise consultant and the project manager also going to be there, and they are looking into this sectoral wise the loan processing, cleaning process. And the technology also they are going to use. They are going to use information system auditor and technology based valuers to do all these things by applying the technology, valuing the things and all easy. And the tax and the HR consultant are also going to be a part of that. These are all the people, subsystem people also going to work in this bad bank concept. But some of the things we have to ponder here, so that should the company be a permanent one? Absolutely, there is no permanent one. It is a temporary one-time solution. And then if it is a one-time solution means staffing, personnel, all these ecosystem, how it is going to be then redeployed after that, that is a problem. And the price recovery mechanism regarding the securitization also, transparency is now they are telling how far it is going to be, that is a problem. And the resolution strategy regarding this 15:85, point number one, and previously valuation process and also difficult one. And funding privately and or the public resources, so that how much this funding process, and there is never a complete cleanup, that never do that in the system, in the financial system. So we can never do the cleanup process. And lastly, if you do this kind of cleaning process frequently, it leads to the lazy banking. The people, the banker used to be so lazy, and they used to do all these activities very casually, and that helped to pile up the NPA. So these are all the points I want to share with you. Finally, I'll come to the title now. Will the
Sir, not audible, sir. Dear participant, actually, our resource person disconnect because of power cut. Will join. Please wait. Hold on line.
Please.
Dear participant, please wait. Our resource person will rejoining because of due to power cut is trying. Please hold on line, all of you. Okay, now our resource person rejoined. Please, yes, sir. Please.
Sir, dear participant, sorry for the inconvenience. Due to that, for
Sir, voice is not clear, sir. It is not audible. Oh, sir.
so that is the
Yes, sir.
and thank
Yes,
you
sir.
very much
Yes, sir.
to all of you. And I am ready to take questions if you have anything.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Ganeshamurthy,
Please, participant, please ask any clarification to our professor Sulamchi sir. I request you to please ask your queries or any clarification, or otherwise we are going to complete this session. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for
right?
your
I think
time and
that in between.
yes, sir.
In between these questions, there is a lunch. That is lunch time, na. So
Yes,
that
sir.
prevents the participants to ask the question. Okay, no problem.
Okay, sir.
There are
Please
two
wait,
things.
sir.
One is,
Please wait. I request you to participant going to present propose
nice.
vote of thanks to our pro, sir.
Okay.
Please.
Good afternoon, sir. Thank you for your wonderful presentation, sir. It was very enlightening and thought-provoking, sir. Has the title start with will the proposed bad bank cure India's banking sector? Start by a question, but you answered. You have given the answer in all the parameters, sir. It was very thought-provoking, and you have explained us bad bank, their functions, and you have explained with the financial statement. You have given us a practical knowledge too, and you have also given us the type of risk in the banking sector. It was very enlightening for us, the idea. You have enriched our ideas regarding it, and you also led how it leads to a liquidity risk. You have cleared all the ideas. You have cleared all the doubts. So I think the participant didn't had any doubt regarding your topic, sir. Thank you once again, sir, for your kind presence, sir. Thank you very much, sir. From behalf of our department, I once again thank you, sir.
And Divya madam, thank you very much. And Ganeshamurthy sir and
Thank you, sir.
Vediraj sir and all other organizers and your and if you have any queries, and feel free to put your questions to the organizer. I am ready to address all your questions clearly at any time. And Ganeshamurthy sir, that
yes, sir.
In the my earlier slide, some of the inputs and all not available. I will send the updated that what I have made a presentation now. That slide I will send to you. That PPT. Okay. That you shared with the participants.
Definitely, sir. You send it. Definitely, we will send all the participants through mail. Thank you.
Sir, we're very fortunate to take you as a resource person, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
So it's a kind note for all the participants. We'll get together at 2:30 after the lunch break.
Thank you.
Thank you.